Because we can't fix anything we don't know exists. Sometimes we don't even know they exist, right? Because we only know life through the lens that we see it. But once we identify it, now I have a choice. And that choice is I can dismiss it. It's what I was taught, but it's not who I am. It's what I was taught, but it's not who I am. And I have a choice whether I want to buy into that limiting belief or not. So when I dismiss it, we know that empty space gets filled with something. So I've got to then replace it. It's the second step, right? With something that is empowering and in alignment with where I want to go.
Welcome back to another episode of High Value Discussions. In this episode, we are sitting down with a life insurance professional and a mentor to many that has trained and developed over 200 agents across the U.S. My guest isn't just focused on providing policies. His work centers on education, structure, and long-term thinking, helping families and entrepreneurs protect what they build while creating real financial independence. His mission is very straightforward, but it's also very ambitious, and that is to eliminate financial struggle by giving people a clear, simple plan to win, regardless of the economy they are operating in. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Josh Payne. There are dire consequences when you're not consistent, and fighting will teach you that.
Absolutely.
And if you mess up, if you think you're all, I don't need to train today, I don't need to eat healthy today, it will show in that performance.
Immediately. And that's the trouble with most people is they don't have that environment that shows them the pain immediately, right? It takes a while, and then you look back and go, oh, wow. But you hop in the ring, you know real quick when you get popped once or twice, I'm sure, right? That you have that feedback right away.
You're literally going in there to technically kill them.
Right.
That's the mindset.
Right.
They're doing the same thing to you.
Has to be, yeah.
Has to be. It's not patty cake. It's not tennis. It's not basketball. It's war. It's straight up war. And at the end of it, it's love and respect.
Yeah.
That's why the game teaches you so much. Like controlled violence, but also respect. Something that I love about, say, high achievers like yourself, I feel like you're a chameleon and you adapt into any room or every scenario that you possibly go into.
Yep. You know what, man? I just have grown to love people. I've grown to look at an environment and go, what is the unique selling proposition of this environment, right? And it's obvious when you walk into an environment like you have here. It's gorgeous. It's incredible. It's something that is. I just want to know how you did it. What'd you think about? And to me, that's what I love. I love finding out about people, right? And no doubt you're the same way. Obviously, that's why you have a successful show like you have. But that's me, man. I think that one of my superpowers, I tell everybody, is curiosity. And, you know, when you want to learn about people, right? And I always teach and coach and mentor some of my mentees that, look, man, you want to create a best friend, like find out about them, get them talking and find out about what they love. And to me, that's turned into just the joy of my life, you know? And so I appreciate that, man.
Isn't it? Because it is so boring, say, to do this life alone.
100%. 100%. And here's the thing, like, people comment like, you know a little bit about so much, right? And I don't know a lot, but I'll dive down in questions to find out. But I know a lot about a little because every time we get together with somebody is an opportunity to learn. And people have so many experiences that they can share that they may not even know are making a difference. But it's what I love. it's like, man, I learned about, I don't know, you name it, like the most off the wall things. And I'm like, wow, that's incredible. And I'll use it somewhere else in my life just because I can relate based on an experience I had in the past. So curiosity is a joy, and in my life yields itself to that as we sit in front of so many people, as you do here in this podcast. I mean, that's what you do, to learn and really kind of continue to grow.
Have you ever heard of that quote, curiosity killed the cat?
I have, yes.
I truly believe that's probably one of the most stupidest quotes I've ever read.
It's like we're taught our entire life like to answer questions, right? Somebody asks a question, we answer it. And that's what we're taught to do in school. But man, we're never taught to ask questions. Like how much have I learned in my life just because I ask questions of people? And to me, it's a genuine feeling of wanting to know the answer, right? And so, anyways, I use that as an opportunity to learn about people, but really fuel my curiosity on life. People know so much that they can share, and they want to share. Not enough people out there asking and caring what they have to say about something.
Well, I mean, I gotta give you your flowers because I mean, as soon as you came in here, you weren't asking me questions as if it was an interview. I can feel the curiosity off of you right away, and that's why I was like, I felt like I was being interviewed. I was like, am I on the hot seat for the podcast?
Well, I mean, look, man, you have something special here, and I think you should be rewarded for that through being able to share. Because to me, I mean, I've been in business and around a long time, and rarely see something as well put together as what you have. So I think you should be very proud of that and be honored with that. So today we're seeing this lost art of people connection, right? And I mean, that's kind of obvious, right, with the emergence of technology, as we were talking about, and automation, and AI, and wherever that's going to end up going. But like we talked about, there's nothing like when you put two energy sources in a room that can connect. And I hope to be an advocate to keep that going, right, in business and life, and so that people can continue to learn from each other.
Well, brother, since this is the first time we are meeting, I think it's going to be great because it's always so valuable to go in the very beginning because obviously you've made wavelengths through what you've done, right?
Yeah.
But it's so important to go back in the very beginning, brother. So for my audience and for myself, what was your upbringing like, brother?
Yeah, man. So I was born and raised in Sacramento, California, and my entire life was revolved around playing professional baseball. Since a young age, you couldn't find me without a bat or a ball or a glove in my hand. I show some pictures when I speak around, and it's like I look at them, I go, man, those are some awful pictures. But they were, just it was a kid that had a love for the game and ended up going to school playing Division I college baseball. Had an incredible career, all conference in one of the top conferences in the nation, and appeared in Sports Illustrated, ended up being inducted into the Hall of Fame. But everything changed for me, perhaps, when I suffered a back injury. And I had surgery, rehabbed, came back the second game of my senior year, had an incredible year. But at that point, number one, I wasn't the most talented athlete. I just had the work ethic that was ridiculous. And I always say I was probably 70% of the talent, but 150% of the work ethic, right? So that made me successful. But now I was washed up, right? And even though I had incredible numbers, average athlete, outperforming his talent level, it just wasn't an investment maybe that was going to warrant opportunities at the next level. There were some candy bar and plane ticket offers, right? But at that point, I understood the business of baseball. And that being said, I was devastated. That was my life. And I didn't know what I was going to do after that. So I started coaching Division I college baseball, and I just realized that the chapter had turned. And I got into, for 10 years, I ran very high-end private country clubs here in the Silicon Valley. And it was at that point that I got my second education, right? So I'd finished school, got my degree that was supposed to provide this career, right, that we're all sold growing up. And I was living a life of quiet desperation, man. No purpose, no passion, didn't know it was just like, what am I going to do for you? I know I'm destined for more than just this. But God put me into a position that for 10 years I got to service some of the wealthiest people in the world. And man, let me tell you the lessons I learned. If you can imagine going to work every day and having to watch other people live the life that you want to live and what that feels like, right? It's like the carrot that's dangling out in front of you that you know you can never grasp, right? Because it's just too far. And every day I watched and I would see these high-powered meetings going on out at the grill after they had just finished playing golf. And I'm like, man, that's the meeting I want to be in. Because I know stuff is happening in that meeting, and I know I can be in that meeting. I just got to figure out, what do they do to get there, right? And because the injury happened, but the dream didn't die. I wanted that. I tell people, I wanted that rock star, athlete, movie star lifestyle, right? But I couldn't sing. I can't act. My athletic career was over. So what was it going to be that was going to provide that life? Well, I started building relationships with people that had the life that I wanted. And let me tell you, man, at 31 years old, I came to a crossroads. And that was a crossroads where I had to make a decision. And the decision was, are you going to continue with the same beliefs and mindsets that you were taught growing up? Or are we going to seek the beliefs and mindsets of people that had the life that I wanted? And this is a tough thing, right? Because growing up, a lot of that was family, coaches, people I respected, teachers, professors, whatever. But at a certain point, I look back and I go, all right, like, how many of those people have the life that I want? At 31 years old, I made the decision I was going to unlearn everything I'd ever been taught about business, success, my future, and relearn it from people that had the life that I wanted. That wasn't easy because the people that are our environment build us to who we are, and to say, okay, I'm not buying into that story any longer, and I'm going to learn this story over here because they were entirely different. That was a big deal, and it was a turning point in my life, and it was at that point I just started learning. And that's probably where I learned the curiosity side, right, of asking questions. And I had a unique opportunity, and I think this is an important part of the story of where we come from, because we're all given opportunities in life, and the question becomes, what do we do with them when we're presented with them? And a lot of times we don't know necessarily, right? Hindsight's 2020. Everybody has it, but it doesn't pay you a dime. Foresight will make you wealthy, right? And so it's just that it's tough. We don't often have that. Well, I was in an environment where I could get a little white golf ball around a golf course in a lot fewer strokes than these people could ever do, okay? And so here's the thing, right? It leveled the playing field, because now we're talking about, like, some of these guys were world changers, okay? And they probably wouldn't know me today from anything, but they made a major impact in my life during that season of my life. And because I could get this little white golf ball around a golf course, I could do something that no matter how hard they tried, they would never in their life be able to do what I could do. Okay. And they had something I wanted, which was the knowledge and the wisdom to provide the life that I wanted. Well, what that did is it put us on a level playing field, and it got me in front of them for 4 to 5 hours a week, a couple times a week, or whenever we would play together. And think about that, right? Being able to be out there, ask questions in a totally captive environment, it was incredible. And that was the turning point of my life. And we were able to build relationships where they kept sharing, they kept sharing, they kept sharing. And eventually, what did it do? It reprogrammed how I thought. And from that was able to then say, okay, my direction has changed in life. And so I went from running these facilities in the industry to then looking for the opportunity that was going to enable me to build the life that I wanted. What I knew was this: I wasn't going to build some computer in a garage, okay? So that wasn't going to be the case. I wasn't going to, I didn't have millions of dollars to invest into something. That wasn't the case, right? Buy a bunch of franchises or whatever. So what was I going to do that was going to enable me to build the life that I wanted? And I knew if I could find a system, learn the system, and then build it, that I could do it that way. And that's how I got to where we are today. Now 17 years in business in the financial industry. Love what we do, have a passion for education and delivering for families and helping people break out of take the same road I went, man. Like no background, no business background. But we talked about this in terms of your fighting and how you transitioned that into business. All I did was I put the same things that made me successful as an athlete, and I put it into business. And to me, that was a separator. And I think it's a reason why some people struggle is they've never had that moment where they're successful and they accomplish goals that fuels the belief that if they put in this work, that it's going to pay off. But once you've had that in one area of life, once you've had that thread of success in one area of life, then you know and understand, and you have the belief that if you do it in another area of life, you're going to have the same outcomes as far as success and fulfilling the goals that you want. And that's what I had. And I just went out on blind faith, and I said, listen, I did it over here. I'm going to do it over here, and just put that same work ethic in, man. And that's where we are today.
While I was an athlete, I loved studying athletes, and especially when they were done with their careers. Kind of like you were saying, how you had that back injury, and then now it was just like, what now? And then in these documentaries and what I read, and just like from athletes and like from personal experience, that fear of starting over, that's fear of starting over into another sector, into another field. They're just like, could I do this? But like that principle of like what you've done that was so great and so daring in this field that you are currently in, take that same work ethic into this, and the outcome will probably be the same, if not greater. You don't know unless you do it.
Right.
So I would always tell former teammates or people who are questioning, should I continue to fighting? They continue fighting because they don't know what else to do. So it's almost forceful. It's not something that's like something that's bestowed upon them, where it's like this opportunity came, now I'm going to go take it. So I think it's just like that fear. I don't know if it's fear of failure, fear of starting over, just that word fear, man, just blocks. And it's like one of the greatest pauses and deficits that the enemy places on people to keep people stagnant and keep people stuck. But man, it's weird when you going through that baseball career, right? So much fear, so much doubt, so much adversity, so much injuries, and so much nagging pains. But you're surpassing all that fear day by day, season by season. Take it into another field and it'll show. And you get better with age because you accumulate more wisdom.
Right.
So if not, yes, the outcome will show. It will be better as well. So, man, there is no fear, man.
Yeah.
There's no fear.
Yeah. And honestly, man, for me, like I was always the underdog. As an athlete, constantly the perspective was not big enough, not fast enough, not strong enough. And all I started to say was, okay, watch. Okay, watch. So you develop this habit of overcoming. And I always coach the people I mentor. I go, look, the best way to build belief is results. Like the scoreboard is the best way to build belief, right? When you see the win, you know you can do it. Now you got to have belief and faith before that, but what solidifies it is the win. And so, because I had to overcome and overcome and overcome, you learn how to handle the fear and do it anyways, right? And that ultimately, I mean, look, that's life. Humans are designed for progression. I love what Matthew McConaughey said in his Academy Award-winning speech years ago when they said, who's your idol? And he said, me in 10 years. And he said he ran into that guy 10 years later and he said, who's your idol? Or you know, maybe idol's not the word, but who's your idol now? He said, oh, it's me in 10 years. And he said, what that did is it gave me someone to chase, because I knew I would never catch it, because as soon as I got close, I just raised the bar to another level. And I think that's overcoming the fear and the doubt. And it's just becomes a way of life to say, okay, here we go. Yes, we're going to acknowledge it, but we're going to do it anyways. We're going to keep going anyways. And man, fear is paralyzing for people. It's paralyzing. I watch people and it's tough because these limiting beliefs, I don't think people have a strategy to overcome them. Like, okay, I have limiting beliefs, I have fear, but what do I do? You know, and we've developed a 3-step strategy on that, just to give it context, right? That once we have identified a limiting belief, or there's fear, right? Because we can't fix anything we don't know exists. Sometimes we don't even know they exist, right? Because we only know life through the lens that we see it. But once we identify it, now I have a choice. And that choice is I can dismiss it. It's what I was taught, but it's not who I am. It's what I was taught, but it's not who I am. And I have a choice whether I want to buy into that limiting belief or not. So when I dismiss it, we know that empty space gets filled with something. So I've got to then replace it. It's the second step, right? With something that is empowering and in alignment with where I want to go. All right. So I've first identified it. So I guess it's 4 steps. Identified it. Then I've dismissed it. I made the choice that, look, I'm no longer buying into that anymore. And I'm going to replace it with this, which is what I'm buying into. But the work comes in the last step. And this is where I think most people fall short. And that is in the reinforcement. We got to reinforce it with repetition and affirmation, because it's the reprogramming of a belief system that's going to enable us to break through that next level. And so when we can put those 4 steps together, identify, dismiss, replace it, and then reinforce it with repetition and affirmation, now I can reprogram those limiting beliefs, maybe it's fear, doubt, whatever it might be, to help me then push through to the next level. The more we do that, which is where I was because I had done it for so long, the more we do that, the faster we can make those adjustments and keep pushing forward through the through those barriers. And look, man, they never go away because we always raise the bar to the next level. So there's always, it's like,
That's the fun part, though.
it is. I remember, this is hilarious. I learned so much. I was so wet behind the ears, man, when I was around these ultra successful people, right? And I remember one time they were talking to me and they were kind of mentoring me a little bit. I said, I'm making good money. How naive. And they said something to me that rings in my ears today. They said, really? I said, yeah. They said, as compared to what? Now think about that. Like somebody says that to you, as compared to what? And just looks at you stone faced right in the eyes, right? And immediately I'm like, oh man, you did it here. He followed up and he coached me on it. He said, look, Josh, you're making good money or you're doing well as compared to what? Your environment you're in now? Make 150,000 a year? Like, okay, but what if you could do that per month or per week or per day? Like, as compared to what? And that impacted me so much because I realized, okay, like if I'm going to continue to grow, I've got to remember the perspective and quit thinking that the lens I see things through is reality and upgrade that lens in order to have more, do more, be more, right? So, man, I've been through some of those moments in life where I'm a get after it athlete. Like, we'll take action and clean it up later. It's like ready, fire, aim. And sometimes, a lot of times that perspective, right? You know this. A lot of times that's a great characteristic, like, because you're taking action. But every once in a while you take action and you're like, oh man, I missed the mark on that one. And in fighting, that could be a damaging thing. That could cost you, right, some severe pain in athletics in general, right? I mean, the outcomes can be tough, but those are our learning moments.
Yes. When you were with these gentlemen at the golf course, I've always felt this. You could always tell when somebody's free just by the value that they provide. So when you were with these gentlemen, did you have a sense that some were holding back or they were just giving it their all?
In my opinion, right? That's the only thing I can share is what I know, right? So I had to build trust with them first. I had to let them know, like, the time you invest in teaching me is going to be worth it. Like, I'm different. I'm different than the average person you're sitting down with and mentoring, right? Because I remember, like, one time we'd finished playing. Now we're talking, this is like beautiful, very high-end private country clubs, right? So there is a definite, like, stigma. Stigma might not be the word, but there's a perspective that they all have of each other. Like, there's a respect there, and it can be a little competitive, and you know what I mean. But so when you build that relationship, and they realize that, hey, if I invest in this guy right here, he's going to take the information and apply it. And as that started to happen, they started to be open and more free more and more, right? Because they knew, hey, if I take some time and I explain something to this guy, it's not just going to go in one ear and out the other. And there were some moments, man. I mean, like, gut punch moments, but then, like, the sea is parting and I find the road to the free world, right? So, yeah, man, I remember one time Daniel was like, we finished playing golf and this one mentor said, Josh, I want to have lunch with you. And I'm like, great. So we go out in the grill and we're sitting there. He goes, look. So it was in and amongst, like, some other conversations we'd had. And finally he goes, look, Josh, here's the thing, man. He goes, you're really good at what you do. But if you continue doing it the way you're doing it in life, you're never going to have what we have. And he said, I know. And he said, I say that because I know what your goals are. And he said, let me explain. He said, there's 350 members of this country club. They all come from different backgrounds, different countries, different industries. He said, but we all share one thing in common. He said, nobody here has a job. We all own businesses and you have a job. And he said, if you want what we have, you're going to have to figure out a different way to earn your income because you're never going to be able to have what we have. Man, in one side, that was like, I got the wind knocked out of me, right? Because, I'm young, I'm hungry. I'm trying to build that path that would provide me the life that I had visioned as an athlete. I'm trying to build that path. And now I get punched, right? Because I'm thinking, hey, I'm just going to continue to climb this ladder. I'm on my way. I'm making good money, right? As compared to what? And then I get that gut punch, right? And it reminds me of a quote I heard one time. I don't remember who it was from, but they said, it doesn't matter how high you climb the ladder if the ladder's leaning against the wrong wall. Right? And that was that moment. And so again, it was those opportunities in life, like for the right person, and I was the right person, and it didn't happen immediately. I mean, we're talking 10 years, right? So there was 10 years of germination happening where I was thinking and I was paying attention and I was watching and I was like, man, I was thinking about what I was taught in school, and I was thinking about what I see, and I was going through how did they get there, and what do they know that I don't, and I want what they have. And so there was a period of time there, right? So it's really unique mix of this type of person in that environment, given the opportunity to have the dialogue and the mentorship that creates a story where I was like, that moment, man, was a moment I'll never forget, but it was also the moment I realized, okay, like, this is it. Like, he just gave me what I needed to know. Now, what are you going to do with it?
Some people, they don't like correction. They don't like critiques. They shy away from it. Like you said, one ear and out the other. And just like you're a very intense individual. You took that, got hit in the gut, but at the same time, just like correlating to fighting, you took it and you were still standing in front of him, still curious, still asking, still there.
Yeah.
Ready.
I think there's a big difference between, there is a big difference between a mentor and a fan. Okay, so what's the difference, right? Because it's going to speak exactly to what you're talking about. A fan is there to cheer you on, tell you you're the greatest.
Yes, man.
Right? Just be the one to give you the standing ovation. And so is a mentor. But there's one distinct difference, is that mentor is going to provide correction when we're off track. And people get those confused, right? And look, one of my all-time business mentors, Art Williams, wrote a book called Pushing Up People, right? And that's 100% right. Like, find a way to find people doing things right and encourage them and tell them how great they're doing. But we all got to have, if we want to break through barriers to new levels, we got to have a truth teller as well that's going to tell us, hey, you're off track here. So my junior year in high school, I was a good player, obviously, in the game of baseball. And I hit some adversity. I found myself sitting on the bench. Man, I had never sat on a bench. I'm like, what the hell is this? And it was at that moment I realized, okay, so whatever the situation, okay, whatever the scenarios going on there, I got a choice. I can either keep doing what I'm doing, or I can seek out a way to get better so that I can get the results that I want. In my junior year in high school, I got a hitting coach that, to most, this might seem like surface level, like, okay, like that's not a big deal. But this guy stripped my fundamentals down to nothing and then rebuilt it up. Okay, so I played this game my whole life. I find this adversity, and now I seek out mentorship to be the truth teller. And now this is years past looking back, right? So didn't see it then other than I want to get back on the freaking field, okay? Stripped me down, built me back up, went out, totally turned around the direction. Senior high school, had an incredible year, right? Recognized all this other stuff, right? Okay. That was scenario number one in my mind to say, all right, so if we're always seeking new levels and we're coachable to somebody that can get us there, that's the results. Okay, fast forward. Same thing happened in college. Fast forward. So that process of being open to that mentorship, right? Not letting ego, or, I mean, how do you have ego around some of those guys? But being vulnerable enough to learn, right? I'd already been through it 2 or 3 times, and I had the receipts to what the results would be if I was open and then followed the same path, right? That thread of success, inner fabric of life. So I just applied it there. And so that's a real important thing. Like, to this day, my life is a result of a layering of mentorship in every avenue and aspect and season of my life. And even to this day, right? People that I watch, that I study, immediate, far, they're all mentors. And that's how we continue to sharpen the blade.
And it's so continuous. Like, brother, like I said, we said this off air, like it just gets better through time. The older we get, the more wisdom just accumulates. Man, I just feel like the seasons, the people that we meet, they give us something. And it would be super weird to just neglect that or take it for granted. Since you did and continue to gain all this mentorship, do you almost kind of mix it up in a way to your own flavor when you are mentoring these people who are under you?
We become a product of all of the different ingredients in the recipe, right? And you know, as an athlete, there was a period of time where I had gone through years of mentorship with my hitting coach. And there was a time where I had to step out and find my way forward, taking everything I'd been taught so that I could do it on my own, right? It was not, I was still in contact, but I had to put the work in with everything I had been taught. Nothing else, taking everything I've been taught, but I had to go put the work in to get the results so I knew I could do it. So I think that speaks a little bit to, in life, we take all the different ingredients of mentorship when you had a life like I've had, and you blend that into your recipe for success, and then that's what we're able to then contribute to others. And man, I look at, I can tell you just like all of the key people in my life and how they have shaped and contributed to who I am today, that goes all the way back to when I was a kid, man. And some stuff I had to unlearn from said mentors because that wasn't what was going to take me at the next level. But they were still filled with foundational pieces from it. Blessed in that regards, man. And I think that as you know, that our gift to others is our ability to then communicate that message to them, right? And I don't know that there's any better gift we can give other people than that are looking for that, than to be there and to help them grow to that next level for those that are willing to do the work, right? And if they're not, then I'm here when you're ready. But we're looking for people that want to take action and make it happen, because time is a finite resource.
And what traits are you specifically looking for when it comes to bringing people and maybe accumulating along the way? Because maybe they don't have it in them now, but you and I, we didn't have it when we were say born. It was almost like developed through sharpening the blades through all the seasons that we've been through. So it's almost like we definitely look for traits into people who are coming, say, under us.
Yeah.
But we're also ready to mentor. We're also ready to develop those traits through time, through seasons, through adversity, through struggle, and through triumph. So I'm kind of curious on what specific traits that you're looking for.
I think there's two traits that they have to have. And without these, they can have a lot of other ones that are good, that are quality that I would look for, but they can't have those without these two. And those two things are ambition and dissatisfaction. And here's why. They can be ambitious, have all those other things. They can be ambitious. But if they're not dissatisfied, they're not going to do the work. And the flip side of that is they can be dissatisfied, hate what they're doing, but they're not ambitious enough to go out and do the work. So whatever they come with, they've got to have those two components. If they don't have either one of those, it's not a conversation. But if they're dissatisfied and they're ambitious, then anybody can break through levels, right? But they have to have those two elements in order to persevere and be persistent enough to get the results that they're looking for. I knew how to coach and move people. I just had to realize that not everybody wants what I want. And I have to find out what they want. And I have to help them get what they want, not what I want. And man, I blew through some good people from a standpoint of I could have really helped them, but I wasn't mature enough as a leader to realize that I was coaching people to maybe what my ideal was, but their path was different. I think that comes with maturity and experience and wisdom, right? And so with that, then we can learn to meet people where they're at.
Since you didn't have a background in business finance, why did the financial services kind of come into your hands and gaining interest from that, especially from a field that you're, say, maybe not literate?
Yeah,
honestly, because it's
not
kind of intimidating.
Entirely. Entirely. Well, I think that financial illiteracy personally was part of what led us down the road, right? So my wife and I were married and we were working hard and doing well for two people that were employed. We were doing well, but we knew nothing about money. And I remember one day I'm like, man, we got to get a plan. We got to, like, what are we doing? Do we go to school? Do we go back and take classes on this stuff? Like, how do we learn this stuff? And the universe is amazing because a couple of weeks later, we found ourselves in front of our advisor, who now we've been business partners for 17 years. And she took us through and she put our plan together. And I got to tell you, man, like, people say, Josh, you're so passionate about money and education. It's because I'll never forget that feeling. I was sitting there going, how in the hell were we never taught this information? Now, that is a bigger systemic problem in our country, issue that I don't think will ever change, because the nature of our system is to create faithful soldiers, employees, soldiers, right, that will be led through a system. And the more empowered we are, the more we can take our own route, and the less we are able to be guided down this path that started sort of during the Industrial Revolution, right? When we went from this agrarian system of education to this Prussian system of education that bred faithful employees, right? That came from an educational system that bred faithful soldiers. So that's a systemic problem. And I realized it at that moment. And I said, look, my wife was educated, I was educated, and we didn't know any of these basic fundamentals about money. I mean, we were good with our money, but we didn't understand how to make a plan. I said, if we don't know this stuff, we know for sure our friends, family, network don't know any of this stuff because they come to us for everything. And we said, well, okay, so do we want to get 20 years down the road and then come back to us and say, man, you mean to tell me you knew this stuff and didn't share it with us? So again, my path at that point was I was looking for the next move, right? So all of this kind of happened the universe aligns when you decide what you want, the universe aligns it. And I said, this is it. And then I realized, I said, okay, so we've got a chance to make a huge impact. We've got a chance to build a business that didn't take us like $100,000 that we didn't have to get started in, right? That I could learn, that somebody was going to mentor me, and that we were going to be in 3 of the largest, most profitable industries in American business, where we could build massive, passive, recurring income for our family and then pass it down for generations. I said, this is undamn believable. And that's how I got started. Knew nothing about the business. But, okay, I went back to my track record and I said, wait, doesn't matter. I got stripped down to nothing as a player, built back up, had success. They kept telling me I wasn't big enough, wasn't fast enough, wasn't strong enough. I proved all of them wrong. I'm in the Hall of Fame. I'm just going to apply those same principles to what we're going to do here. I started part-time, was part-time for a couple of years, and then made a bunch of money, saved it all, fired my boss, and came full-time. That's how we got started. I didn't know about money, but you know what I did? I had faith that I'm a good person. I keep people's best interest in mind 100% of the time. I'm friggin' willing to pack my lunch and get after it. So let's do it. And that's how we got started, man. And then I started to realize what the industry does and the impact that had on me. I realized what had been done to my parents, and that fueled me. And I just realized I got a bad on. I didn't like the industry. I didn't forgive them and for taking advantage of my parents. And I just decided this was going to be where I was going to plant my flag, man, and make impact as much as I could during the time that I have it on this planet.
You know, money impacts our day-to-day life. And it's so scary when you look at those stats of the priority of like not even pursuing financial literacy, and it keeps increasing.
Yeah.
Does that still shock you?
It does. But again, I understand where people are coming from two perspectives, right? Understanding the system, but understanding my own path. Like, I didn't know. I was blessed enough to be coachable when it was presented to me to say, this person has what I want, and I don't know. If I want what they have, I gotta follow some coaching here. So I've always been very, very coachable in that manner, right? And so I'm grateful for that because it taught me. And today am I surprised? I'm pissed. But it doesn't no longer surprises me because I see the way that we're just misled in life. Kids coming out of school buried in debt with a degree that is useless. And look, my wife was in education. She taught for 13 years before we retired her from teaching. Like, I'm not anti-education, but I was a student athlete. I had special counseling and guidance in the educational system, and I came out with a degree I was never, ever going to use. So if that's me with all of the perks that an athlete has in guidance to come out with a degree that I was never going to be a physical therapist, I was never going to go that route. I have no idea looking back why that was the route that I went on. Well, what if that was somebody that went into major debt to come out with that degree? So, you look at that and that's a real problem in my eyes. Like, we're taking these 17-year-old kids and we're putting them into loans that are going to be, depending on the financial institution, major loans, and they don't even know what they're doing at that point. And some there's parental involvement, but many there aren't. And I just think the system's broken in that way, right? And so I get pissed about it, but I know I can't change that. I can't affect that, but what do I have the ability to affect? I can get out and make sure that our agency's getting in front of as many people in the communities as we can across the country. And if we can bring the simple financial education to families, they have a shot. They have a shot, right? They got to make the decision that they're going to take action for their family. But what I've found is that most people are just dying for a chance to know that they're on track. And that's what we get the pleasure of doing every day, man.
How does that feel, brother,
Yeah.
to be able to provide the service that you do?
Well, as a coach by nature, like that's what motivates us. Grew up in a coaching family, college coaching family. Like that's what motivates us is, and that's what we're rewarded for, right? As a team that performs, a coach is rewarded when their team performs, right? When the team doesn't perform, Pete Carroll gets fired, right? So by nature, that's a very natural thing, right? And to ask, like, how does it feel? You don't understand. There's a lot of, I can look back over our career and there's a lot of impactful moments where, your heart to heart, a spouse passes away unexpectedly. A family gets to retire when they didn't ever think they would be able to do that. I've got this a great story where I was sitting with a husband and wife, and they were referred to me, and and he'd worked at this municipality for 35 years, right? And it was just a blue collar guy. Awesome dude. We have so much fun together every time I see him, and his wife is just as sweet as can be. And I gathered their information and I put together that worked up their plan, and they were ready to retire based on their goals, right? So they come back in and they sit down and we're in my office, and you're talking like tough dude, okay? And I went through the numbers and I was done. I said, guess what? You can walk away tomorrow. You're good to go. And to watch that guy break down sobbing at my desk in my office because he never thought that that day would come after 35, 40 years of being in the trenches. It's an unexplainable feeling, right? And we still joke today every time I see him. You remember when I was sitting in your office and I broke down and I cried? They've gone on to live an incredible retirement together, and we still talk about it. And he's one of our biggest advocates because, again, he was somebody that didn't ever think he'd be able to do it. And truth be told, like, he did the work. I didn't even coach him. I just was able to take where he was at and say, based on here forward, you can retire. You can do it. And it was such a big moment in his life. Incredible. So those are the fun times, man, and the ones that you remember. But we got a big challenge ahead of us. You know, we got this wall of wealth that's happening right now, where it's a once in a multiple generation phenomenon where we have the baby boomers that are passing away, and Gen X and millennials are inheriting upwards of what's estimated of $100 trillion in intergenerational transfer of wealth. The challenge to that is you've got generations that are inheriting this money that didn't build it, that weren't educated on it, and hence by the second generation down, so the third generation in total, 85% of wealth is all lost. Why? Because we're not taught what to do with this money. And so this money is transferring down, but we got to be educated, and there has to be guidance and mentorship to help people make sure that that's not only able to sustain that generation, but build that generation to generation legacy that was intended from, the first one that passed away. So
Those, generational blessings being passed down, but generational habits need to be passed down as well.
And that only changes with guidance and mentorship, right? And rebuilding of a mindset without any kind of mentorship and guidance, that's not going to change. And again, that's where we see that money spent and that's it. It's gone.
It's almost like be ready to unlearn,
Totally.
like what you did.
Totally.
You had to unlearn so many things that you were taught, and then just be ready to absorb new information and execute on that information.
Yeah.
But man, like you said, the system, it fails people.
Yeah. And again, like we are capable to take control, right? So the onus and the responsibility is on us. System's a problem, but we can take responsibility. Look, the books have all been written. There's just not enough readers, right? So we've got to take the responsibility to get the education and create that environment that has the guidance and the mentorship to help us know what to do.
I talked about the fulfilling part, but there's also the obstacle part. What's probably the most challenging thing that your field brings?
Which day? And at what hour? Because let me tell you something, in entrepreneurship, you're at the peak of the mountain 1 hour, and the next hour you're in the depths of the valley, right? And look, man, like that's the love of the game. Without the challenges, we don't know the blessings, right? We can't celebrate the wins without the losses. and that duality of it, right? We want to have more wins than losses.
For sure, yeah.
But anytime you're working with people, like, you're going to have challenging times because that's the nature of relationships. And I coach new agents in the business because that emotion is tough, right? And it doesn't matter. It could be in our business, could be in anything. But to understand that, like, this too shall pass, that as long as your heart's in the right place and you do what's right every day, like, all you can do is all you can do. Art Williams always said that. He wrote a book about it. All you can do is all you can do, but all you do is enough, right? And at the end of the day, if your heart's in the right place, you're doing everything you can. Like, that's where the perseverance, that's where the grit, as Angela Duckworth talks about in her book, that's where that grit comes in, where you just, look, I'm going to get past this and keep moving forward. So, I mean, every day there's things that we come across to overcome. But here's the reality of it, right? I use a couple analogies on this, and this can go to anything in life. Remember those weeble wobbles? You ever remember those things? Like, you're a fighter, so like, we used to pretend fight with these weeble wobbles, right? They were these blow up things, and they had sand on the bottom, and you could kick the bejesus out of it, and it would pop back up, right? So weebles wobble, but they never go down. Okay, and that's what we've got to become. We've got to be able to get knocked down and pop right back up. It's not your success quotient, but your failure quotient that counts most in life. Like, how do you respond when we get knocked down? And it's easy to say when we're having a dialogue about it, and the dialogue goes out the window when you're in the valley of it, right? But that is really what is a conduit of success, right? The barometer of the success is how fast can we respond. So in the beginning, we may get knocked down and it takes us a week to respond. But brother, you make it long enough in entrepreneurship, you get knocked back down, you pop back up. It's like you could walk through that gauntlet of we used to play that game with balls, right? We had to run down the middle and everybody's throwing balls out. You're getting hit all over the place, right? It's like you just keep going. It's like bam, bam, bam. Nothing's going to stop me. That's a learned skill. And for somebody who's early in business, right, it's not going to feel like that, but it gets easier. It goes the old saying, we don't wish for smaller problems, we just become bigger people, right? So that we can handle, it's not that the problems get less, it's just our capacity to handle obstacles gets bigger and better. So the highest paid people are the ones that handle the most important challenges. So they don't go away, we just get better at handling them, and we turn around and we look back and we go, man, look where I came from.
Man, and speaking of leadership, your job is to be able to bring people up, but there's also a time to let people go. Is that a hard thing to do?
It's a hard thing to do because we've got a heart for success, right? Whether you're a manager you run a company or whatever, like, that was always the toughest thing for me because I pour my heart out and into things. And even to this day, it's not easy. But I've been down a lot of roads thinking I can fix things that are too deep for me to fix. And I've had to learn how to identify that and then allow those things to filter themselves out. Everybody's important. And if the season comes where they've always got a seat at the table. But there are certain things that are going to be required to be at the table. Positive attitude, right? Positive attitude is number one. Why? Because we have total control over it. And I can't allow cancer to spread. And the fastest way that happens is when there is a attitude problem, right? And that can stem from a number of things. And it's okay. It's just that to be at this table, that is what's required. And for the most part, everybody gets it and can learn. I had to. And it's not to say that we don't have the tough times, right? But it's just how are we going to handle them? How are we going to show up, right? You don't show hurt. You don't show doubt. That's what my mentor always said. Nobody can ever know if you're having the best day or you're having the worst day. I think Tom Hopkins always said, here's the way you answer. When somebody says, how's your day going? You go, unbelievable. And if you know Tom Hopkins, you ever seen him, right? He's a sales trainer. He goes, unbelievable, because it could be unbelievably good or it could be unbelievably bad. But it's still unbelievable. And so he goes, that's the simplest way to stay positive and handle it. Yes. Unbelievable. I can see him standing up on stage saying that. Unbelievable. Yeah, man. I just think that with time and experience and wisdom, like you learn who you're going to invest your time in, and you learn the ones that you have to allow to go find their own path and come back when the time's right. Yes. So it's not easy, man. Yeah. I wish I was a pro at that, but I'm still learning every day. Yeah, I'd probably be a lot further along if I learn that faster. But that's the joy of leadership, is that every day we're learning.
I'm also very curious on the actual art of sales. It gets a bad look because of the car salesman, so on and so forth. But if you look at every industry, it's all sales.
Well, life is, right? I mean, raise kids. They're the biggest closers there are, right? Daddy, can I have the cookie or the popsicle? Alternative choice. Tomorrow or Friday, 2:00 or 4:00, right? So life is sales, right? You're married, she sold you or you sold her, right? Probably you sold her because she's, at least in my case, everybody's like, she far outclasses you, dude. So you sold her. My wife is amazing. I am been blessed for 22 years now that we've been married, which is crazy. Right. Seems like just yesterday, 2 amazing kids. So I think the art of sales is everything, right? It's life. People say, I don't like sales. Look, you sat down in an interview with your employer and you sold yourself on why you should have that job. So don't tell me you don't like sales. Okay, what is it about sales you don't like? Don't like being pushy. All right, so here's the deal. Like, what is... oh man, there's such a great story. And it's an author that you and I have in common. And Rabbi Daniel Lapin, who has written some amazing books about money. And one of my mentors is good friends with him. And so I've known of him and been fortunate enough to be exposed to his books and his teaching for a long time. And he talks about this. He says, like, in the Jewish faith, right? Because he is a rabbi, and that's what he teaches from. He teaches from that perspective, right? So in the Jewish faith, in the ancient Torah or the Old Testament, the perspective that they're raised in is that we're put on this planet to serve our brothers and sisters, okay? And so Rabbi Lapin has this amazing perspective on business. He said, look, most people associate service with like, I'm serving people at church. Yeah, you are, but is that where it ends? No. Like, any time that you make somebody else's life better by serving them, you're serving God, is what he says, right? And so this is what I try and help people understand about sales, right? In life, if that's our perspective, right? If I'm in a mechanic and your car breaks down and you bring your car to me and I fix that car, I have made your life better, right? And therefore, the money I receive for that, Rabbi Lapin says, is just a certificate of performance for improving your life. Okay, all right. So anytime that I serve somebody and there's money exchanged for that service, well then, he says, I am serving my brothers and sisters. I'm doing what we're put on this planet to do. First time I heard that, I'm like, dang, that really makes sense. Okay, so if a transaction doesn't happen in the world of sales, because that's what we're talking about, right? Then I'm not making somebody's life better. If somebody doesn't take action and get a financial plan in place for themselves, then likely they're not moving in the direction that's going to make them most successful. But if I'm skilled at what I do and I can help provide a solution to a problem and make their life better, well, then that's about as noble a thing as I can do. And so what if I can show you a way? Like I ask people, I say, Daniel, have you ever had an experience in life where you felt good about a transaction? Where you were like, man, that was awesome. Like, they did a great job, right? Like, I feel great about purchasing this microphone because I know it's going to do what I need it to do. Well, that is great. Okay, awesome. So if I can train and develop you to feel so that you can make people feel just like you felt when you purchased that microphone, well, would that make sense to give it a shot, right? So that's the perspective about sales. So I'm not your conventional sales guy. Like I can't stand the sales tactic. It's like, look, I'm going to come in and I'm going to dramatically change your life. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to friggin' beg you for you to help your family. But I am going to be skilled and competent enough with mastery to show you why this is the best thing for you and your family. And if I can do that, well, I'm fulfilling my purpose on this planet to make somebody else's life better. And the transaction that typically will happen is just a result of that, right? So that's kind of how I look at sales, man. I want to get out there. I want to improve lives, but that if I'm not competent at what I do, then I can't do that. But if I am, then I can make a difference. But if there's no transaction, then I'm not getting married. I'm not married for 22 years. I don't have two beautiful children that are pride and joy. I don't have a business. I don't drive a car. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is life, isn't it? And so, again, it's that systemic problem we have that people get this feeling. And yeah, there are people out there that deserve that perspective. But when you do things right and you make a difference, then they never look at it that way. As a matter of fact, they give you referrals and they want you to talk to everybody they know because you made them feel good about the decision they made.
I referred this book to a lot of people, and particularly when it comes to like businesses in the same sectors and so on and so forth. You know who Patrick Bet-David is?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so he wrote a book recently called Choose Your Enemies Wisely. Mm-hmm. Phenomenal read.
Yeah.
Talks about like the logic and the emotion when it comes to approaching your enemy or your competition. And I mean, I read it after my fighting career, but like if I was reading that during my career, my goodness, that would have been so valuable.
Mm.
How are you analyzing and studying your competition, like studying your enemy?
Yeah.
Like me, brother, when I was fighting, I watched them from head to toe.
Yeah.
Even my coach, my mentor, he was like, even pay attention to how they write their captions on Instagram.
Mm.
It's like pay attention even the
Yeah.
way how they articulate their words. It's like
Right.
pay attention to even the little smallest details. I was like, all right.
Yeah, there's a lot of perspectives on competition these days, and competition versus competitive versus creative, right? And where's the most value for somebody, in the competitive space or in the creative space, collaborative space? But at the end of the day, like, I was an athlete, so there wasn't a pitcher I didn't know exactly what every one of their their tendencies were in their pitch delivery, what pitches they were going to throw, how they held their finger out of their glove, when they changed the angle of their glove when they're throwing a pitch, right? So study that relentlessly. Now I'm working with my kids on this, right? They're both pretty, they excel at the sport. My daughter softball, my son baseball, and so it's like, look, when everybody else is, because there's my son's still young, he's 11. My daughter's a freshman at St. Francis High School here locally, and so she's maturing in some of this stuff. But my son's still around a bunch of kids that are messing around in the dugout at times, right? And I'm like, your eyes are on that pitcher, and you're watching every pitch, and you're studying what he's doing, what he's throwing, which count, right? And that kind of goes a little bit in one ear, out the other still at his age, but he's coming around, right? So that's definitely in my DNA. So where I've taken it in business is just, I was talking to somebody recently about debating. And I said to them, I said, listen, you know your subject well enough when you can debate the opposite side's perspective and win. They looked at me. I said, yeah, so you don't believe this, but you can go on that side and you can debate it well enough that you would beat yourself in a debate. Then you know your subject matter. So for me, is the ability to know what is offered out there in the marketplace and know it so well that I could teach the competition about what it is that they're putting in the marketplace. I can teach it, my team obviously, but I can teach them. And from there, if I know that, then I can present my side, not my side, right? But in the essence of competition, because that's just the principle of the question, right? Is that I can present what we do so fundamentally sound that there would not be a question to look elsewhere. Ultimately, that's how I would answer that question, is to know the opponent well enough to structure a defense for them and beat myself. If I'm trying to get ready and never take action. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to freaking go and figure it out. Like, my mentor always used to tell me, Josh, you go out and slop it up, we'll mop it up. Okay. Just go out and take action. And that's the truth. And to this day, she will coach me on it and coach on it all the time. And it's right, because that's how we learn. It's like people used to say to me, Josh, you're not coaching your kids in their teams in softball and baseball. And this was when they're young. And my answer to them was like, they got to have experience before they can put the dots together with what I'm going to teach them. Like, they have to get to a certain level before I can spend my time communicating what they need to know to get to the next level. And so I let them get out there and learn. And then as they matured, then I was able to get in and say, okay, Like, so here's why we do this. And they had a frame of reference. Beating my head against the wall gave me the frame of reference to say, okay, now I'm going to be strategic on it because, damn, dude, I don't know how many more times I can bust my nose up and have it not like want to fall off, right? You know what I'm saying? So you learn through messing it up. And then, like now, I teach people, look, people learn from their mistakes, but smart people learn from others' mistakes. Let me teach you what my mistakes were because I've made them all. And it's like I'm standing on the other side of the minefield and you're on the other side. And I know the route you can step and not step on a mine. So, or you can just try and come through, but you're going to come through missing some limbs. Like I've already been there. So let me guide you through, like take 2 steps forward. Okay, 1 step to the right. Oh, you want to go left? No. Oh, I told you don't go to the left. Like there goes a leg, right? You know what I'm saying? Like that's the value of mentorship. So, brother, I have bloodied myself more times than you can ever imagine. Man. And fortunately, I had some people to dig me out of the mess, not as it relates to the client, but as it relates to me and the work I either tripled because I, did it my own, tried to figure it out on my own, right? But man, did I learn what works, what doesn't, and how to think with wisdom from experience.
As this time that you've given me, I don't know your children and I don't know your wife, but I can tell without a doubt they are just proud that you're by their side.
Yeah,
Without a
man.
doubt, man.
Well, that's at the end of the day, I think that's the goal, right? And it's not an easy road, man. And I've been blessed with an amazing wife, and the goals always get bigger, right? So I think relationships can definitely, the wrong partner can be a tragic, tragic mistake. And it's in times of adversity that is often identified, right? And in business, I've been blessed with somebody who's been by my side and supportive and has played so many different roles in our business and in our family life, and kids that I love dearly and I think respect and admire, but also know they got kind of a dad that's just like a crazy nut and but here's the thing, man, like how am I ever to expect my kids to go after their goals and dreams if we're not going after ours? If we're not modeling how to do that? And if I expect them to give it everything they have every day and there are distinct expectations we have for that, then brother, you better believe we got to live by them too. And it's not always easy, man. And there's trade-offs. There's trade-offs to, I don't think like balance is a myth. If anybody's looking at entrepreneurship, like you're an example of that because
it ain't happening.
It ain't happening, right? You know that. And I watch your schedule every day. I know what time you get up and when you're training and doing the things you're doing. And here's the way I think people need to look at that, right? And it's for a season. It's not forever. It's for a season. But we live in an environment now that wants this work-life balance. That's fine if you want to be average and ordinary. If you want extraordinary reward, it requires extraordinary effort. And so when we think about this topic of balance, I use a tire as an example. A mentor of mine told me this one time. He said, Josh, here's the way I want you to think about balance. In fact, gosh, I was just listening to him today. He was talking along the same path as this, but he said, when's the only time a tire is balanced? I remember I was thinking, I was like, well, I don't know, like when the car's parked. And he said, well, try again. And I gave him like all these different answers. They were all wrong. He just is like, how many times can I get JP to give the wrong answer? He's like, you are about as bright as a light bulb that burnt out, man. And we laughed. But he said, the only time a tire is balanced is when it's on the rack. But he said a tire's not meant to be on a rack. A tire's meant to be on a car. He said it's not about, we don't live our life in a linear priority. We live our life, it's a proper word that I should use here. We live our life simultaneously, right? It's not like this is first priority, this is second priority, this is third priority. It's everything's a priority. And where am I putting my focus at any one given time? Because look, if I'm with my kids, I'm out of balance in my work. If I'm at the business, I'm out of balance with my kids and my wife, right? So we're never balanced. The only time a tire is balanced is when it's on the rack, but a tire is not meant to be on the rack. It's meant to be on the car. And at any given time, there's a flat side on that tire because it's meeting the road. So we've just got to think about abundance in every area and live life with that perspective, right? And so, you know, that's what we've been able to do, and that's only happened because I've got an incredible family that supports that. Yeah.
Well, Bill, I have one more question for you, okay? So, we talked about business, we talked about marriage, we talked about fatherhood, we talked about financial literacy and mentorship, leadership, etc. If you would have to put one essential principle to it all that you would want to give to the audience, what should that one principle be?
What comes to my mind, and I can't shake it, is personal responsibility. Taking personal responsibility. Why? Because in every area, like, it's real easy to say, if so-and-so did this or so-and-so did that or so-and-so did this, whether it's family or my wife and I's relationship or business, that it would be better, right? Or the outcome would be faster or bigger. But I start first with personal responsibility. And my personal responsibility to be the very best I can be every single day. And I'm not going to win every day, right? I heard this the other day in a podcast, and it was fantastic. And it was on the Diary of a CEO. I thought it was just a fantastic. Chris Williamson said it. He was on that podcast, and he said, if you miss one day, it's a mistake. But if you miss 2 days in a row, you're building a new habit. Now you think about that, right? Miss one day, it's a mistake, make a correction. So the topic was, how do I give myself, the question was something around, how do I give myself grace, right? To know that I'm not going to always be perfect. The conversation was around, it's 2026. People are setting new goals and targets. And he said, you miss once, no problem, it's a mistake, you can correct it. But if you miss 2 days in a row, you're building a new habit. I thought that was so powerful. So where does that fall under personal responsibility? Is that I'm not going to be perfect every day in each of those areas, but I'm just not going to take 2 losses in a row. I'm going to make the adjustment so we can keep moving forward.
My brother, are there any closing statements you'd like to give for the podcast, man?
Man, it's just what a great job you do. And appreciate the opportunity to share with somebody who loves to listen like I love to listen. Man, I'm so much more of wanting to be over in your side because the curiosity.
Bro,
and
it's treasure for me.
Oh,
Trust me,
man.
man. I'm being fed, and I get to, what I love about this too, man, I go to bed better.
Yeah.
That's such a blessing within this show, man. The time that you've given me, man.
Yeah.
Treasure, brother. Treasure.
Appreciate it.
Truly, bro.
That's my last thoughts. Is what a great opportunity, great experience it was, and what a top-notch environment you have. And I wish you all the best, man, and look forward to continuing the relationship.
I applaud you. I have utmost respect for you, brother. And I hope and pray that you continue on this success, my
I
man.
appreciate that. Likewise.
Thank you all for tuning in to today's episode. If you got a lot of value out of this, please do me a favor and support our channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. Make sure to hit that follow button on Spotify to stay updated with our latest episodes. And if you are listening on Apple Podcast, I would greatly appreciate it if you would leave a 5-star rating, followed by with a review. Again, thank you all for the support. Stay loving, stay hungry, and stay excellent.